great tower alone on the sea. You became the light in the dark side of me. Love remains the drug, that's the high, not the pill. But did you know that when it snows, my eyes become large and the light that you shine can't me see? Hello and welcome to the What the What podcast. I am Eric Creech,
Yep.
the co-creator of this podcast, and joining me today, now that he's been told that he has a serious impulse problem,
Could be.
your other co-creator, the boy wonder himself, Kyle Whitley.
Yeah.
Ashby is not with us this week. She will not be with us. She's on assignment. Sometimes you watch the news and so-and-so's not joining us. They're on assignment. Well, Ashby's on assignment tonight.
She coming back next week?
I think she's coming back next week. She's definitely coming back in 2 weeks because that episode was her idea.
Okay.
And she'll be back in 3 weeks for the Avengers.
I think she said that she was available next Thursday. We'll see.
We'll see.
Either way. She doesn't like Batman. So I feel like that's why she's not here.
I think it's the Batman thing and not the fact that,
Work.
She's just, work, or she's just got tired of carrying this show for 2 weeks in a row.
That's true.
Needed a week vacation. Let us do what we do. So,
yeah.
Cool deal.
Well, let me jump in over here.
All right.
Welcome to the What the What podcast, where we are exploring all things pop culture, whether you're a Dark Knight or a two-faced homicidal maniac.
Yes.
Please subscribe to us on the Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or whatever you get your podcast. And of course, rate and review us. 5 stars only.
5 stars.
Which is 2.5 more than today's movie is rated on IMDb. That's a great fact.
That's rough. You like that little tidbit out
That's
there.
a great fact.
Trying to find a way to tie that in there. Yeah, that's rough. 5 stars is half of what, twice as much as this movie is rated. So
Yes. Also, please follow us on the Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at What the What Media.
all one word.
Oh yeah, And find us on Twitter at WTW_media, which is only for What the What fans.
Yes, I'm assuming all those are only What the What fans.
Oh, could be.
So yeah, why not?
And we could always use a little more, so please invite your friends to like, share, and subscribe so they can become our friends.
Yay! Last week on this podcast, we discussed a brand that defined our childhood in both the literary and television worlds. That is Goosebumps. And we shared our favorite episodes of that TV show. On today's episode, we are diving deep.
Deep dive!
You didn't read it.
I'm sorry, I can't see.
You didn't read it. It says, we are diving deep, Kyle.
I like deep dive.
Yeah, but it's not grammatically correct.
Nobody cares.
I care.
They're not
Ashley cares.
They're not tuning in for grammar.
I'm
tuning in for the pop culture.
We are diving deep into the 1995 film Batman Forever. Here is your requisite spoiler warning for today's episode. While Batman Forever is our primary focus, we may be discussing any and all things related to the Batman franchise, including the comic series, the animated and live-action television series, any of the theatrical live-action releases, and all things in between, possibly taking into account the entire history of the Caped Crusader from the moment he and his parents walked into the alley behind the theater on that fateful night to the present day. So,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Jumping in to some basic information about this movie. It was released in the United States on June 16th, 1995, directed by Joel Schumacher, not Tim Burton.
Nope.
Although Tim Burton does get a producer's credit and a writer's credit as well. It stars Val Kilmer, not Michael Keaton, Tommy Lee Jones, Jim Carrey, Nicole Kidman, and Chris O'Donnell. Had a $100 million budget and made $336 million at the box office.
$30 million.
I know, never. And this was a sequel to the 1992 film Batman Returns and would regrettably be followed up by Batman and Robin in 1997. Now, we did this 2 weeks ago when we did Captain America: The First Avenger.
Yes.
But we made Ashby do this, where she was going to recap the movie in 120 seconds. Well, today, I put 121 seconds, so this is a 121-minute movie. So I'm thinking,
oh, that's good.
A second per minute of the movie. But Ashby's not here.
Nope.
We can't make the new girl do, what we want here. I mean, we can't say, hey, you're the newbie, you got to recap the movie.
And right, that was good.
Do what?
Let the newbie recap the movie.
I know. I'm coming up with all these great things today. We can't do that now. Nope. And me and you both have seniority here. We can't say, well, I've been here longer. We've both been here the equal amount of time. Mm-hmm. And I'm not pulling Rickie up out of his chair. He's watching the History Channel right now. He's engrossed in something. Mm-hmm. We're not going to do that. in
toothpaste.
In true fashion that Harvey Dent, one of the villains of this movie, would do. He would flip a coin. Mm-hmm. Now, our coin is just your run-of-the-mill quarter.
Yes, it works in all venues.
You got heads, and then you got looks like a Georgia peach on the other side. Okay,
it's a collector's one.
So we're gonna flip a coin, and we're gonna see who has to recap this movie in the next 121 seconds.
I'm hoping it's me.
I'm hoping it's you too, because I
excited.
Didn't come prepared. So, Kyle, I'm gonna let you call it in the air.
He would call heads.
He would call heads. So you're gonna call heads now.
Oh wait. Well, his is double-sided, but one's scratched.
That's true.
He likes it to land on the scratch, I think.
Well, the scratch means he can kill people.
Okay, scratch. Then.
All right, so you're going to go to Georgia Peach.
Yeah.
Cool deal. All right, so here we go. It landed on heads, which means I've got to reach.
No, if you would have had it, you would have flipped it over, because that's what he does.
So I've got to catch it, is what you're saying.
He would have done that.
So that's a missed flip.
And that would have been tails, so that would have meant that
So I need to flip it again, is what you're saying.
I don't know. It depends on if you land on heads or not.
Let's do this.
Haha, the peach.
Aha, the peach. So you get to recap this movie.
Yes, I do.
In 121 seconds. Let me get the timer up.
Hold on. I gotta take this mask off to do it. For those listening on the episode, I've been wearing a Batman mask, but now, in order to do this, I went true Ashley Brain action here, or form. I typed up a nice thing here. I tried to talk really fast at work, but I don't know if I'm going to do it. 121 seconds. I'm going to come close.
All right, that's the timer. That's what it's going to sound like whenever it goes off.
You have to turn. You got dark mode on, so I'm going to have to make sure I can see it.
So I have dark mode on. All right, here we go. On your mark. Get set. Go.
Batman, he's back. But wait, that's not Beetlejuice. That's Doc Iceman Holiday. This time he is Gotham City's Huckleberry, and he's going back crazy. It starts off with Tommy Two-Leaf-Faced Jones stealing a safe from a bank, letting us know that who the big bad is in town now that Joker, Catwoman, and the Penguin are taken care of. We get introduced to Edward Nygma, a researcher at Wayne Enterprises who idolizes Bruce Wayne, who develops a device who can beam television into a person's brain. Bruce offers Nygma to come up and schematics, blah, 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 and talk to the secretary. However, Nygma wants an answer now, and Bruce rejects the dumb and possibly even dumber invention, believing it to be too close to mind manipulation. Old Edward is tired of Bruce talking out of his butt and decides to continue on with his project. That is when his supervisor finds him, and he kills him and makes it like suicide. He then quits the next day and starts sending old Brucey boy riddles, all with a criminal mastermind to become the Riddler. Oh, somebody stop me. At some point, Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman, shows up and she's a psychologist who's obsessed with Batman. Don't believe me? Batman responds to the bat signal on the roof, expecting to see old Commissioner Gordon, but surprise, surprise, Dr. Meridian's standing there in her underwear. Turns out
1 minute left.
Oh, crap. Turns out the only thing Batman is more afraid of than bats is scantily clad women as he turns and jumps off the roof. With that fresh in his mind, Bruce invites us to see the circus. They take him to the Flying Graysons. Two-Face shows up to try to kill Robin, or it kills the family with a bomb, and Batman stands up in the most un-Batman thing, says, "It's me, Harvey, I'm Batman." Thankfully, nobody heard him. Chase Meridian standing beside him, doesn't have a clue. Cut to the next scene. Headlines read, billionaire Bruce Wayne adopts 35-year-old orphan boy. The fellow, Dick Grayson, is strong-headed and doesn't like staying with Bruce. He's disgraceful and calls Alfred out. Man, that hurts.
30 seconds.
He slips and ends up discovering the Batcave. Turns out Bruce is Batman's surprise. He decides to Batman cruise around, doesn't work out for Batman to the rescue. Argument. Oh man, I should be a superhero too. I call myself Robin because that's what these
20 seconds.
I have the 60s Batman and Robin stuff tights in my drawer. Crap, this is hard. Brains are sucked out. Families taking over. Bruce Wayne, blah, blah, blah. The Riddlers. Bruce, Batman, band partners, sidekicks now. Heading over to Bruce and Batman's leg claw, and they're going to feed him. Yeah, death, revenge. Two-Face dies because he chases after his coin. They first show Arkham Asylum for the first time, and that's the kiss from the rose on the grave, friends, because his partner is now, they're going to fight crime.
That was pretty close. You had to cut a lot out in the end for some, I think, but
I did.
But that was pretty close.
You know what's crazy? It actually had like 4 pages.
Yeah, and she somehow got it all.
That was like
in
1
the
and
time
3/4
there.
of the page.
So that's insane to me. Good
I don't
job.
think I have focus.
Good job. Let me turn this.
I think that's my issue. Is I don't have focus.
You don't have focus. I thought, hey, you were hilarious. Though.
I can read.
You have hilarity.
I can read.
You don't have focus, but you have hilarity for sure.
Yes.
So, all right. So, first off,
okay.
General thoughts.
Don't look at my page.
General thoughts.
General thoughts.
Yes. Go.
Bat nipples.
That was the 4th movie. That wasn't even this movie.
No, it is this movie.
Is it this movie?
It is. It starts with Joe Schumacher.
Yeah, but Joe Schumacher did the
I
second.
can go look at it. I know he did the second one.
Yeah.
I can't say 100% Batman has them. Robin has them in this movie.
Okay, fair enough.
I did go back and watch to check because later in the movie they changed costumes, and Batman definitely doesn't because he has a bigger bat symbol, but Robin has them.
Fair enough.
So they started here.
So that's your general thought.
Well, I feel like anytime you bring these movies up, that's what's one of the main things that's brought up is for some reason these suits needed to have nipples on. I won't go into too crazy with detail, but I know he said that he wanted them to look like Greek god statues. So whenever he decided on the look, that was Drew Schumacher's. That was his decision. It wasn't somebody else's decision.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed it, especially as a kid. I know this one and Batman and Robin are not seen as great Batman movies. They're like, the worst of the family where everybody tries to ignore them and, they're horrible. But honestly, I was 8 when this came out. So you were 8 or 9 when this came out.
Yeah.
And so for me, this was probably one of the first Batman movies. I know I saw Batman Returns because my cousin Lewis had the video game. And so I remember us knowing like, oh, this is straight up out of the movie. So I know I at least saw that. So more likely I saw the original Batman as well with Michael Keaton, like the first one. But this is the only Batman movie I had on a VHS for my entire, whole childhood. Like, I didn't grow up and get more. So, I didn't get Batman and Robin after this one, but I did have Batman Forever. So, I probably watched this one more than any other Batman movie in my life, if I had to say that. But I enjoyed it, and I loved the toys that came out with this. I remember having the layer. It was like a 3-piece layer. Like, there was a section for the Batmobile, a section that was kind of like in the middle, like a trap area, and there was a whole nother section that was up top, and you would like attach your figure to like a rope that would slide all the way down to the bottom layer. But I don't know, it's cheesy. I mean, what do you want me to say? Like, first and second one are very much more dark. They're very Tim Burton-y because that's who directed them.
That's what Tim Burton does, yeah.
And I think you could have had something great with that, but McDonald's said, hey, we can't be selling kids' toys at McDonald's for things that happen as they happen in Batman Returns.
Right.
I'll be honest, there's a lot of things in Batman Returns I didn't remember until I've gone back and watched them now as an adult. And I'm like, oh wow. I'm glad that I did not catch that as a kid. But Batman Forever, I mean, it is what it is. Oh, my voice just picked up a whole lot. Maybe we'll stay there.
Maybe.
But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy it, and I went back and I feel like we've talked a couple times before about nostalgia goggles. And I feel like this is definitely one of those.
Yeah.
But knowing I saw it as a kid, I was very much into it.
This is, I think I remember seeing the original 1989 Batman movie when I was younger. I don't have a great memory of it, but I feel like I had seen it. But I know I saw this one. This is the one, I saw this in theaters. I had the VHS. I loved this movie. I just, it was a simple movie for a kid, and it appealed to me as a kid. And nostalgia goggles, everything. I have fond memories of this movie. It's, I know you mentioned that this one and Batman and Robin get a lot of flack. I understand Batman and Robin getting a lot of flack because even as a kid, I hated that one.
Well, you can go back now and see Batman and Robin, and you see how much more it was commercialized.
Right.
Where it's like Mighty Ducks is big right now, ice skating, kids are going to rollerblade on the weekends. Let's make our characters be able to do that. Like Batman and Robin have some rollerblades on their feet now.
Yep.
But I don't know.
But with this one, I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it now. I mean, it's not. I don't enjoy it the same way.
Sure.
But I still, going back and rewatching it, I went in with the expectation, knowing it's not going to be like the Batman films that I love now, like Dark Knight, Dark Knight Rises. But I enjoyed this more than Batman v Superman that came out a couple of years ago.
I can see that.
I mean, just in pure enjoyment. I mean, that's, I'm not someone, I know you're a big comic book guy, and, I dabble, but I'm not someone who has to have, it be completely true to the comic necessarily, or true to the source material, as long as, especially with, Batman. Because Batman has had so many iterations over the past 80 years. Comics, he's had his own little campy TV show, he's had animated series, he's had live action films, so many, depending on when you grew up, that's the Batman you're familiar with. It's not necessarily the source material is, the thing. Like with the Avengers and stuff, I had a little bit of base knowledge, but the Avenger films, that was my real first kind of entry into it. I knew who they were, but in terms of storylines and intros and origin stories or whatever, my first real experience with it wasn't comic books or, television shows necessarily. It was the films themselves. So that's what I identify with. This movie here was one of my first real, iterations with Batman aside from the animated series. Mm-hmm. So that's what I kind of identified with. And, I don't need it to be super, like reflective of the source material. Does that make sense?
It does. And I feel like too, we're in a time period now that's different.
Yeah.
Than when we were younger because of Marvel and all that's come out. And even they like stray somewhat from the stories, in the comics. But back then, Joe Schumacher didn't read comics. Tim Burton even admitted he didn't really care for the comics, so he didn't read comics. So like they made movies on their own. They had a general idea of what was going on, but still, like I feel like it didn't bother me as a child. I didn't know the comics as a kid.
Hey Ashby,
I didn't know the comics as a kid, so I didn't know one way or the other. As far as I knew, a lot of the stuff that I grew up knowing about comic book characters, especially Batman, was either Batman the Animated Series or these. And honestly, a lot of it's kind of here and there with some of the movie stuff. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. I remember from hearing it years ago, but Kevin Smith and somebody else did a live watch along. And I can't necessarily recommend it since we're a family show. But he was talking about in the beginning, of course, Kevin Smith being a giant comic book, especially Batman follower and fan. He was talking about at the beginning of this movie, a lot of the characteristics and things are much more to the comics than, say, Batman or Batman Returns. And how it starts off, how some of the characters are, some of the things Batman does. Like, a lot of it's very much Batman, like, from the comics. It gets a little crazier later down the road in the movie. But overall, even with that, I think it's cool. I keep stuttering through it, but, like, the new Batman they're about to come out with Robert Pattinson. I feel like they've mentioned that being an original story too. Mm-hmm. So it's not necessarily going to follow. I'm sure it'll have hints and different things here and there.
Right.
But I'm fine with the new story. Like, it doesn't have to, unless you're like Marvel who announces, this is Civil War. Right. Or this is this. Like, then you kind of expect it, okay, well, it needs to kind of somewhat follow this storyline, which is awesome and it works for them.
Right. It gives them a guideline.
Yeah.
But with Batman, and this is going off the rails a little bit, away from the movie that we're talking about, but there's been so many new iterations of Batman. I feel like I know, which Christian Bale, his version that was written by Nolan. I can't remember Christopher Nolan. Yep, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. That was less a superhero movie and more of a gritty crime drama.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that. Mm-hmm. These two Shoemaker films are meant to kind of be campy and fun for the kids or whatever. And, that's your target audience. The previous two Burton films were kind of darker, grittier than what we've seen because the Adam West TV show kind of presented Batman in a different light. You've got your animated series that's had some theatrical releases. I feel like they're probably the closest done to the comic adaptation. I don't know what the Snyderverse was doing with their, with their Ben Affleck version, which I know some people enjoy that too, and I'm just not one of them. But I'm someone who I know the story. I mean, a lot of people know the story. Batman's an orphan who
almost every movie has retold the story.
It's and including in this one.
Yeah,
including in this one. Like we get some flashbacks here. I'd like to see something fresh. I mean, we've had Robin in 2 films, and they this one and the next one. I'd like to see Nightwing at some point. I'd like to see a Batman Beyond because I know that was an animated series when we were growing up.
So many people have talked about it, and I would love to see it. A Batman Beyond with Michael Keaton.
Yeah,
as Bruce Wayne.
As Bruce Wayne. Yeah, and with Michael Keaton's age, and especially with the way he portrayed the Vulture, I mean, he could probably pull off that version of Bruce Wayne. Now, I'd love to see a continuation of that story. That would be great. So. But my personal thoughts is I enjoyed it as a kid. I still kind of enjoyed it as an adult. It's just, it's not the same kind of enjoyment, but I can still put on my nostalgia goggles. I can't speak. I can still put on those goggles and kind of see through why I enjoyed it. Jim Carrey was a favorite. Tommy Lee Jones, I know him and Jim Carrey had some issues on the set, but it felt like Tommy Lee Jones was like trying to outdo Jim Carrey's camp. And as a kid, I loved it. And as an adult, I chuckled at it because it's like, man, that's so awful and so bad. But I still kind of enjoy it the way it is. So,
well, the same way this movie too is the first time really that we get to see the detective side of Batman,
right?
Because he's known in the comics as the world's greatest detective. Well, a lot of this movie is him being detective, like him having to solve riddles and him having to do different things and stuff. you saw maybe glances of it in the previous movies, but honestly, it was more just action in those movies.
Right.
Versus this one, you see a lot more thinking from the Val Kilmer version of Bruce Wayne, as well as Batman. So
let's move on to casting what ifs.
Okay.
Originally for Batman Forever, Tim Burton, the director of the first two Batman films, was already working on the third Batman film, which was going to be titled Batman Continues.
Yes.
Great name. Which was going to star Michael Keaton, Michelle Pfeiffer, Billy Dee Williams, Robin Williams, Rene Russo, and Marlon Wayans. But following the release of the previous film, McDonald said that Batman Returns was inappropriate for children. So Warner Brothers asked Burton to step down as director in favor of Joel Schumacher. I'm assuming Keaton and Pfeiffer are continuing their roles as Batman and Catwoman from Batman Returns. Billy Dee Williams reprising his role as Harvey Dent from the first Batman movie, and he'll eventually be turned into Two-Face. Robin Williams as the Riddler, Rene Russo as Dr. Chase Meridian, and Marlon Wayans as Dick Grayson / Robin. What are your thoughts on that rumored original cast? And I know how much you love Robin Williams, so that's why I put that in there specifically.
I will start with first, is I wish Billy Dee Williams still have gotten his chance.
Well, he did in the Lego Batman movie.
That's true, he did. But for me, I think it was important, you put your time in creating a character, which honestly, sure, most people didn't have a clue that guy becomes Two-Face back then. But for the simplicity of it, I think it'd been cool for him to deserve a chance. He comes in, puts in that effort, but doesn't get the Two-Face part of it. But beyond that, Robin Williams, yes, I think he could have done a great job. He's my favorite of all time, but he didn't take the job because it was offered to him. But originally in the first Batman,
he was offered
the Joker, and pretty much talks were moving forward until Jack Nicholson showed interest. And once he showed interest, they dropped Robin Williams.
They pretty much used him to try to get Nicholson, is what I've heard.
And so once he did that, Robin Williams was like, they call him back to be Riddler, and he's like, no way. Because you got to think at the same time he's going through the same thing with Aladdin, where all of a sudden now they want to start using him for different things, and then he had a rough go with that too, where he dropped out. I think he could have done a great job, but honestly, Jim Carrey was amazing in this movie, for being who he is, especially at the time. Jim Carrey, being
Jim Carrey training,
it's what's happening at the
time.
The
Mask.
Yeah, so I feel like he was great for this. I couldn't replace him with that. Marlon Wayans, honestly, I'm sure he could have pulled it off just as well, especially with the type of movie that they made, where it was more of a campy, fun type movie. There was some seriousness to it. But I feel like either way, and I'll bring it up a little bit later possibly too, but regardless of Wayne or Chris O'Donnell, I feel like they were just both too old.
Right.
For me, especially now that we've finally seen, Tom Holland play Spider-Man, and you've got a younger actor in, and you can prove, yes, you can put somebody younger, age accurate into this role, and they can still do a great job. It doesn't need to be an older actor. And so that's my complaint. Regardless of anything else, I just feel like they were too old to be Robin, especially with the storyline they ran with, where it's just taking place at the very beginning where his parents fall and die, and we're supposed to believe he's some young guy that needs help. So how about you? What do you think about that cast?
So I'm trying to look at this cast through the lens of what the Joel Schumacher film became. Okay, so this was going to be Tim Burton's preferred cast. So
I didn't think about it that way.
Assuming he would have made a third film similar to the first two films, that changes the movie completely.
And there I see more of a Robin Williams role there. I could see that better.
Right. But in the Joel Schumacher iteration of this film, what this film ended up becoming, I don't know if I can see Michael Keaton doing what Val Kilmer did. I don't see where Michelle Pfeiffer fits into this movie at all now. She wouldn't, unless she's feuding with Chase Meridian. And Billy, I do want to see Billy Dee Williams, as Two-Face. Just for the fact for me, this movie is supposed to be the same iteration of Batman from 1989 and the 1992 film. So I can kind of forgive, okay, Val Kilmer, used to be Michael Keaton and he morphs into George Clooney in the next one. I can kind of forgive that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little more noticeable when you've got Billy Dee Williams and he turns into Tommy Lee Jones. They're not the same at all. So I kind of want to see that. I agree with you on the Robin criticisms. I wouldn't mind Marlon Wayans or Chris O'Donnell, but just pick one. But I still think they're both too old, like you said. So,
and that's a lot from seeing it now, being older. As a kid, it didn't occur to me that he was that much older or whatever. Like, so
Right.
for the time period, sure, it probably wasn't an issue. But seeing it now, yeah.
Other casting what is for Bruce Wayne and slash Batman after Michael Keaton dropped out: Johnny Depp, Ethan Hawke, who was rumored to have turned it down, Daniel Day-Lewis, William Baldwin, and he who shall not be named himself, Ralph Fiennes, who played the Lord. Well, he who shall not be named in the Harry Potter movies.
Lord V.
Yep.
Not
Any
Vader.
of them stand out as potential upgrades over Val Kilmer?
If I had to choose one out of all of them,
Yeah.
I would choose Ethan Hawke. Is who I would want.
Which he was rumored to be the next pick, and he turned it down. So, this is before I really got familiar with Johnny Depp. This is a good 10 years before I got familiar with him, because I didn't really become super familiar with him until Pirates of the Caribbean, or the Caribbean, depending on who you ask.
Yes.
But I'd like to see his take on it. I mean, it would be a very different take, but I think it'd be interesting. But I don't think it would be an upgrade over Val Kilmer necessarily.
No.
But it would be a different take.
Well, I felt that's your natural reaction, not just you, but me as well. Like, you think Johnny Depp, and you're like, oh, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, I don't want a drunk Batman wandering around the whole time. Like,
you're the worst Batman I've ever heard. Oh, but you have heard of me.
Yes. Then I had to,
or actually him doing his Batman voice. Oh, yes, but you have heard of me.
Yes. And he's got that one little dread that's just hanging out in the back cowl. I don't know. For me, I think back to, I had to slow down and think about that today and think about, like, Public Enemy. Right. That's a great movie, and he is a completely different character there. He's not a funny, he has his little humorous moments because of the type of character he is. That's a great movie, and he's much more serious, but also it's a Bruce Wayne type feel.
Gotcha.
Where he can go in and do some crazier type things, but it's not the Pirates of the Caribbean Johnny Depp. So I could see him in there.
Okay.
I just felt like, for me, my initial thoughts, same as you, Pirates of the Caribbean. So that's how I envision Batman.
Exactly.
Just like with just kind of wiggling his way around places.
All right, so that being said, where does Val Kilmer rank in your personal Batman rankings?
One other question.
And this is live action theatrical versions only.
Only thing I can think real quick, Johnny Depp calling the Batmobile the Bat Pearl. Like, where's my Bat Pearl at?
Yes.
Back to your question.
Yes. So no Kevin Conroy.
That's literally my first thing. I typed it and then I read it later live action.
I've had to put that in because we talked about him already when we did our Batman animated series episode last September. Yes. So this is live action theatrical versions only. I know because if you put theatrical versions, well, he did the Mask of Phantasm, which was a theatrical release.
Because you said no. Remember, the animated had some theatrical release as well. I was like, oh, maybe I can say that.
No. I put live action though. Live action. So where does Val Kilmer rank?
Are you going to do the full list?
Let's do the full list. Dude.
Okay. He falls second from last.
Second from last. So he's over George Clooney.
He is. George Clooney's dead last year.
So let me guess. Ben Affleck's third.
Ben Affleck is third.
Then you're going to do Keaton second. No, you're doing Christian Bale second.
I did a tie because I could not decide Bale because there's two different types of movies.
Right.
And I love Michael Keaton because he came out and surprised everybody because everybody thought, was it Mr. Nanny or whatever it was that he was previously known for?
Right.
And then coming into this role. And then Mike just got loud again. That's great.
That's cool. Good. Yep.
But to have that, but then same way as I got older and got back in, honestly, Christian Bale got me back into Batman. Seeing that side of things and be like, well, you can have a serious superhero movie.
Right.
A much more, especially coming off of seeing Batman Forever, knowing that one so well in your mind, coming years later and seeing that, like, it's hard to just jump from the other. And same way we've talked about, it's not about this Ben Affleck. I just don't feel like got he never got a great just Batman movie.
Right.
He was always jammed in with other
Superman
things that had to get so many things accomplished.
Right.
I just don't feel like we ever saw a true great Batman movie or an opportunity from that.
Okay, so I'll address that. I have Christian Bale 1. I'm gonna have Keaton 2. I just for their Batman / Bruce Wayne portrayals. I just enjoyed Christian Bale more. Keaton was amazing. He was great. I've got Kilmer third.
I can see that.
I've got Kilmer third. And that might just be me putting on those nostalgia goggles again. But again,
he didn't do a bad job.
He didn't do a bad job. I thought he was pretty good. I'm only judging based on what I saw. I can't judge based on what I think he could have done. I think Ben Affleck could have done a great job.
Sure.
Fantastic. He could have cracked the top 2 maybe. But based on what I saw, I know it was probably no fault of his own, but I can't create something that's not there. It's like when you see a student who turns in a shoddy final project. He's got it in him to do something better, but you can't give him something that he didn't turn in.
Sure.
So that's kind of where Affleck is, and I think we all agree that Clooney, would have been better off staying on the ER.
That's true.
So,
by the time that Clooney came around, I know we're not going to spend a bunch of time. It's not about that movie today.
I hope we don't talk about that movie.
No, we got to wait 2 years.
And if we do, that's not. Yeah, we can talk about it, but it's not going to be great.
I just feel like it's one of those things that because Chris O'Donnell stayed, he was still Robin, everything else. As a kid, I'll be honest, I didn't notice.
Yeah, Alfred.
Years later,
Alfred stayed too. The same Alfred, same Commissioner Gordon, Pat Hingle.
I felt like for me as a kid, I wasn't so much interested in Bruce Wayne as I was Batman. So I was more so like, what's happening? Where's the Batmobile? Look at all these bright colors. Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like what's all these bright colored things everywhere. Like
see, whenever when '97 came around, I was a little older at that time, like 11 or whatever. I started asking questions like, okay, so where's Nicole Kidman? I mean, not Nicole Kidman. Where's Dr. Chase? And hey, Batman has kind of a grayish tint in his hair now. He's not that old. He's got a tan. And where's his glasses? And his face is a little rounder. And so I noticed those things just in 2 years. So
you mentioned the glasses, and I forgot about it. But I was listening to like I said the Kevin Smith one, and he was talking about it because they did a live watch along, and he brought it up a couple of times of like, there he is again, Bruce Wayne having to use his glasses to read something. He's like, how great is that you got a Batman that every once in a while he's got to stop and pick up his glasses to be able to see something. Like he's like, no, Batman doesn't need that, or or whatever to fake it, or but they were talking about how it was used to make him look smarter. He's like, because it was kind of around that ending time period where if you wanted to make somebody look smart, you gave them glasses.
Yes.
Like they didn't have to act that out. You just gave them glasses, and that made them smart. So I continue on with that.
All right. What's your favorite scene?
This is a cheesy scene or a dumb scene that doesn't, but as a child, it stood out for me forever. The laundry scene.
Okay.
It stuck with me that to this day, when I do laundry, I think about this movie where, Chris O'Donnell's doing his laundry and he's like flipping around doing some crazy stuff. I think he had his bow staff, didn't he? Maybe I think.
Yeah, or like a mop handle. It wasn't a bow staff.
No, it was a mop. And he's just doing his laundry, at Wayne Manor. And, he's like grabbing his stuff and flinging it off and like drying, like hang drying his clothes and stuff, but he's like flicking everything everywhere. This happens with me. Like if I drop something on the floor, same way if I, I've gotten a shower and my clothes are on the floor, I use my feet to throw it up to myself like all the time. Erica used to laugh at me, and now she kind of does every once in a while. She really tries to pick it up with her toes. But it's like, oh, that's on the floor. I grab it with my toes, throw it up to my hand.
Show you how good I am.
Yeah, and I always think about that. Same way like when washing clothes, if I'm trying to throw it in the dryer and it misses, then I'm just like that. And I like go slinging stuff around. Like nothing crazy, but that scene for my entire life has stood out to me to be like, oh man, I wonder if I could do that. And then now it's just a natural habit for me just to use my feet to try to throw my clothes to myself.
All right, so for me, my favorite scene is the opening scene. It's the most memorable. Whenever he's visiting the second bank in Gotham on the second, because Two-Face couldn't resist. Loves those twos. That's one of his defining characteristics is the number two. And just the over-the-topness of him jumping into the bank vault, and then it get like, and then the annoying bank manager who's in there. It's boiling acid. My shoes are melting. And it's like, okay, I'm waiting. This is like the one time I want the guy, like Batman, just to keep the guy into the acid, and like, you know what, just see ya. And just the over-the-topness of Tommy Lee Jones's Harvey Dent Two-Face was like on full display here, and it was, but it just something about it just it sat really well with me. So that's my favorite scene for sure. I guess an honorable mention would be the scene at the party when Bruce goes into the box, and it scans his brain or whatever, and then he has to be Batman, so he leaves his date. Who Dr. Chase is there, and then all of a sudden Bruce Wayne's gone, and never came back. So I mean, I can see why you're attracted to him, Dr. Meridian. But he ends up battling, and he goes out to the car, and he's like, need my suit, Alfred, and gets changed. And 5 minutes later comes Dick Grayson, like, I'm ready for my uniform, and he gets his uniform. So there's something about that, them teaming up, quote, for the first time and not really staying on the same page, but Robin kind of saving him. And so that would be an honorable mention for me. So
for me, the other honorable mention is, we've talked about forever about how I'm a big Dick Grayson fan, especially in the comics and everything else. So something that stood out for me, and I don't know if it was in the animated series first or if it was something that was on this and I went back and forth, but him riding a motorcycle.
Yes.
Because I remember, like, it's more prominent in the next movie, but the first part of this movie is riding a motorcycle. I remember I had the action figure who, like, had a motorcycle, and it was Dick Grayson. It wasn't Robin dressed up riding a motorcycle. It was Dick Grayson.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember that much from there, and I remember, like, as a kid, I had the Robin. I don't know if I had the motorcycle, but at least I had Robin that had a helmet.
Right.
Like, from the animated series. And so I remember him having a motorcycle there. Like I said, next movie, he rides a motorcycle a lot more. But I remember that standing out to me because I remember riding around at my house on my bicycle, pretending I was Robin, like driving my motorcycle, at 8 years old or whatever.
Right.
So for me, that, rewatching it now, that stands out to me as something that, as a kid really stayed strong with me because I went out and pretended those scenes all the time.
Okay.
Cool. How about you? Riddler, Two-Face? How do they work as main villains?
I was going to ask you that. You're stealing.
You're
stealing my lines.
I
now.
beat you to it.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to save some criticisms for my nitpicks.
Okay.
In terms of villains, they work really well as villains.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed watching them.
Mm-hmm.
I do not. One of the things that this is not necessarily a nitpick of the movie, but just a nitpick in it. I feel like this kind of created the like the Spider-Man 3 problem.
Okay.
Where
I see that.
You feel like you have to add in like multiple villains for your hero to fight, and this was like one of the first instances where I know in the previous movie you had Catwoman and Penguin, but Catwoman was kind of an anti-hero, not really a villain. I know. But this was like one of the first instances where, okay, you got Two-Face, then you introduce another villain, and now the odds are twice stacked against them, and I don't think their ideologies work that well together. Where Two-Face was just, he wants to kill the Batman. Riddler wants to make money and become rich, and I don't think they really saw eye to eye in terms of just like I guess their focus on what they want to do. Two-Face didn't care about money. He wanted to take down Batman because Batman failed to save him whenever he got hit with the acid, and turned him from Billy D. Williams to Tommy Lee Jones.
Yes.
Riddler didn't care anything about Batman. He wanted to get revenge on Bruce Wayne, who he didn't know was Batman. At the beginning, he just wanted to make a lot of money and take over Gotham. So that's the thing that doesn't work. One of them works, but the two of them together did not work as well as you would think. So your turn.
For me, I see at least they put them together in ways that they had opposite things as far as their actions. Riddler was not so much a violent person. Like, sure, okay, I can say that, and he killed his boss and he hurt other people, but you've got Tommy Lee Jones, who's the more physical person, I should say, who's violent, jumping in constantly with his like glowing goons that show up all the time and just take out people. Riddler was just on the crazy side of things, which technically he still had the brains where he had to like think things through and came up with all the plans, and then Tommy Lee Jones is the one that would come in and wreck them and do everything else. So I feel like it worked, but I feel like honestly it's just the next step. You've already used Joker, you've already used Catwoman, you've already used Penguin. Animated series was already out, right? Came out.
Yes, 92.
Yeah. So that's already been out. So honestly, the biggest villains from there would be Two-Face, Penguin, or we already got Penguin, but Riddler. You're looking at some of the main ones. And so if you're making a major motion picture, you're going to try to get, especially at the time, to get these big, heavy hitters. And so It made sense, so they would be next. I don't know if they needed both of them. I guess with the fact of adding in Robin and having a sidekick, that's why they put a second one as well. Or honestly, they could probably just make more money and sell more toys and sell more things.
That's the big thing is this movie, and we'll talk a little more about this, I guess, in nitpicks. But this movie was not necessarily made for critical value. No. It was made for commercial value, and with that becomes how many toys can we sell? And if you have an extra villain, you can sell another toy. With the Robert Pattinson Batman film coming out in 2021, 2022. Matt Reeves is the director, and the rumor is that the Riddler will be the villain of this. I want to see where it's just the Riddler. Like, he's the main villain. I want to see him using his intelligence to outsmart Batman. Like, we got him in this movie where he was over the top and, kind of insane and crazy. But I want to see a different take of the Riddler. The same way I'd like to, we saw Two-Face in The Dark Knight, where, it wasn't over the top campy. It was, something completely different.
Yeah.
Where he was focused on revenge, avenging, the death of his fiance, avenging the death of his former life. He was truly a good man turned bad based on the circumstances. With this movie here, Riddler and Two-Face, I would like to have seen how they would have worked separately as separate villains, and not shoehorned in together.
Well, even like you're talking about The Dark Knight, it had Joker.
It had Joker and Two-Face,
but they did it in a way that they weren't working.
They weren't working together.
No.
They had, in fact, they were working against each other for most of the movie.
Yeah. So when it turns, you actually are more involved and have more already there relationship built with these characters.
Exactly. So
I thought that's good. I did hear like there's a possibility. I heard a rumor at some point that Penguin may be in that new movie, but I feel like it was just all around who they were trying to possibly cast at the time.
Right.
But I've heard more about the Riddler, so I don't know. I hadn't checked into it in the past.
I'd like to see just a good take on the Riddler.
Did you ever watch Gotham?
I watched a little bit.
It gets better as it goes on.
It did not hold up well the first few episodes I saw, but I heard they ended up introducing pretty much every major villain.
They did. So. And they did a great job, but especially by the end, I really liked it.
I know, spoiler alert for Gotham, which we gave the warning at the beginning
Sure,
of anything Batman related, but just in case. I do know that the Riddler turns out to be like a forensics guy on the Gotham Police Department. And that's an interesting take to me.
It is. That's the only reason I brought it up is honestly, he does a great job as Riddler. He ends up being one of the forerunners of the show, along with Penguin, as well as far as villains. There's lots of them, but honestly, the Riddler, that take on that character is done really well. So I feel like you could do, especially, I imagine with the world we live in now with Batman, they're going to be more serious anyway. I'm sure they can have some fun with it. Guy's doing what he wants, but I would like to see more of the smart side of the Riddler, because Jim Carrey was crazy to be crazy, and it worked because that's what you wanted out of Jim Carrey.
That's what you want out of Jim Carrey, but to see a more nuanced take on the Riddler would be interesting, especially and I think of like Christopher Nolan for this, because he did Inception. His Dark Knight trilogy was fantastic. Just a really involved like a kind of like an escape room on film. Batman's got to figure out, how like these riddles are there in place, and he's got to figure it out. Like otherwise, I don't know what, but I just would like to see a better take on that. So
it's not so much riddles just to tease Bruce Wayne. Yeah, it's actually riddles that hold. Yeah, there's more
weight behind it. Yes, there's more consequences behind it.
Yeah.
So. What are your nitpicks? Because I know there's got to be some.
There's some. I didn't write much down. The obvious one I've mentioned already is technically Chris O'Donnell was 25 at the time.
Yes.
So no need.
Technically.
Yes, I went back and found out he was born in 1970. Random little things.
That means he's 50 now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Honestly, I didn't try to pick it apart too much, just because I knew what it was, and I knew going back to it, already knowing it was going to be cheesy. There were some random lines that don't make any sense to me, like where Chase Meridian comes up and tries to impress Batman, being like, "Oh, I found out, or I saw that Two-Face has a thing. He always lives by his coin," or whatever. And it's like, no, you didn't.
No, you didn't see that. He was down at the bottom. He was at the bottom. He was way up there. Did you watch the same Cinema Sins?
I did.
Okay.
So they also talked about that on the Kevin Smith one, but I saw it on Cinema Sins, because same way too, they talked about what's his name, Billy D. Williams, how he didn't but whenever he breaks through the safe, the guy's like, "It's a trap!" And he's
now I'm sad because I'm thinking of Landon Calrissian played by Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. Not big, it was random, but for me going back, it's hard to nitpick because I know all the other Batman movies that exist now. That's if I want more serious, either go Batman Returns and have the creepier side of things, or go straight, to the Nolan trilogy and have some seriousness stuff. How about you?
My nitpicks are simple when it comes to logic and to just follow the rules of believability, I guess.
Sure.
And I know that's saying a lot for a superhero film.
But it's still cast in a real type world, though.
Yeah. So you mentioned, that what you mentioned was a good example of, I saw this the other night. It's his coin. He, never makes a decision without it, and you're on the ground. You don't have supervision.
No.
I mean, it's probably better than Val Kilmer, but
Because he needs glasses.
because he needs his glasses. But yeah, mine is the Riddler's plan.
Okay.
And I think they mentioned this in the Cinema Sins video.
I didn't watch
too.
all of it. I had to get back, came up at work.
But he finds Two-Face using the box. Like, he's like, this is how I found you. But that doesn't make any sense. You have to, you actually have to hook up to, to be able to read someone's thoughts in order to figure out where people are. So that didn't make any sense. And then it turns out, he got there and he hid the box, in Two-Face's lair for dramatic effect. And then his plan to, I guess to capture Batman or whatever, he has no idea that Batman's Bruce Wayne. At this point in the movie, his original plan was to just outsell Bruce Wayne and to make humiliate Bruce Wayne. But then it turns into a vendetta against Batman for some reason, and there was no sense in that. And in the final plan, he's got Dr. Chase Meridian, and you got Robin in the one too. He's like, your partner, the one that you fight crime with. It's like, Batman didn't even know a half hour ago that he had a partner.
No. He literally quit being Batman.
Quit being Batman an hour ago, and then Robin shows up and it's like, oh, well, who's your tailor? And I was like, I took the liberty, sir.
Oh,
wow. And it's like, what's the R stand for? And it's Robin. And so Batman's just finding out, but the Riddler had already figured out that, hey, these guys are going to team up, and I'll just split them up. And
that makes sense.
And it's like,
well, it doesn't make sense, but it makes sense.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, so those are my main nitpicks. Is as a kid, I mean, I noticed a little bit of that, but you don't really follow along with it. But it's like, I don't need their plans to be super diabolical. I just need them to make sense.
I was thinking about it earlier too, because as I was writing my little synopsis or whatever, thinking about how he was going to figure out who Batman was. Because if Batman so happened to show up, or whoever was Batman, and they did his brain, they'd figure out he's Batman. And it's like, how did you know he was going to show up in the first place? And I know that wasn't one of his major things. Like, Two-Face is more of the Batman guy. But just that wouldn't have made any sense.
Well, and here's the other thing. So the Riddler leaves these riddles at Bruce Wayne's house, right? Or, he leaves them at, well, at least that's how he started. He leaves one at his work, one at his house, and then you start finding them at these crime scenes. Okay? Again, makes no sense, because why would you leave these riddles at crime scenes for Batman if you don't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman?
That's true.
So the first two were left at Bruce Wayne's house, and then the last, couple were left at crime scenes or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, he uses those to figure out that that the Riddler is Mr. E, M-R-E, Mystery, Mr. E Nigma, Edward Nigma, blah, blah, blah. I see the logic, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, Bruce Wayne, Batman,
That's true. I get that.
That doesn't make sense either. So I'm looking for some believability in the logic department. But again, as a kid, who cares? So,
that's true.
Do you have any questions about this movie that have been left unanswered? I have one.
It may be the one you mentioned one earlier. Is it that one?
I don't know.
Where somebody is now?
Yeah. What happened to Dr. Chase Meridian?
I don't know for sure, because I didn't go back and watch Batman and Robin, so I don't know if anywhere in there is mentioned in a brief throwaway sentence.
They may. I don't know, but I do know they mentioned also where's Catwoman. I know
they did mention her.
They did mention her. Do I need to wear vinyl, skin tight vinyl and a whip? And it's like, well, I mean, that wouldn't hurt, but where is Catwoman? Where's Michelle Pfeiffer? I mean,
that makes sense, because she doesn't get arrested, does she? No, she gets away at the end.
Yeah. So,
just to say, I love Batman and Robin, or no, Batman Returns.
Yeah.
As a kid, that blew my mind. So yes, I would take any of those any time of the day.
Cool.
That was the only question I had. Those honestly, I couldn't come up with anything else, because you kind of got a solution. I guess Two-Face is dead because he failed.
Oh, that's another nitpick of mine, by the way.
Because Batman doesn't let people die.
Batman murdered him straight up.
He didn't. He fell to his own death.
No. He threw a coin knowing what would happen.
I don't know.
Okay.
He could have broke down.
If anything, that's manslaughter. I'm just saying. So there's a gray area there. Where does this movie fall in your ranking of Batman films?
See, originally I didn't include Batman vs Superman or Justice League.
Okay.
Should they be though?
Okay.
Well, I'm asking what's your opinion.
Not Justice League, but I would include Batman v Superman.
Okay.
because Batman's in the title, I guess.
So are we doing the full rundown again?
Doing the full rundown. There's 8 movies.
First one, Dark Knight is the one I'm going to go to all the time to watch. If I just want to watch a Batman movie, that's
if it's on TNT, I'm watching.
Yeah,
it's one of those. It's it's a rewatchable movie for me, 100%.
Yeah, so I would put that first.
Okay, my Dark Knight's number 1 for me as well.
From there, my initial thoughts like, oh, Batman Begins or whatever. But honestly, I think I go back to '89 Batman, like the Keaton one.
Okay.
It's all really rough in there because at some point, Batman Begins and Batman Returns fight it out somewhere in there because it's 2 totally different stories for me.
Right.
2 different moods, if I want to watch it. So I'll throw them in there next, just kind of as a combo. The Dark Knight Rises, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of. I was more pumped for it than what it ended up being.
And that's where we're going to end up differing, I think. So.
Okay. I mean, I did not like it. I remember being really excited for this movie. I think
it was hard for it to live up to the hype after The Dark Knight.
And I feel like for me...
And it was also a very long movie.
This is the first time that I ever got into, as they're making a movie, constantly reading and looking for every single update online to find out more and more about this movie. So I feel like by the time I came in, I had really high hopes based off of things that didn't actually happen in the movie.
Right.
You saw it because I really had hopes that Robin would somehow end up in this movie. He kind of does, throwaway, not so much so what I was expecting, because I remember...
More of an Easter egg nod than an actual...
And I remember people sending pictures, posting pictures online, look, here's this scene at the football field where they're using an R in the logo that's the Robin R. Is that a hint? And it turns out, no, it just happened to be a little Easter egg just for you.
That's where the internet kind of ruins things.
I stopped not long after, because this and some of the Fast and Furious movies, it ruined it for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like it, so I will definitely throw it up there, right behind.
That would be your number 5, maybe?
Probably.
Yeah, number 5, yeah.
Somewhere in there.
There's 3 movies left.
And then I will take this one, Batman Forever, next.
Number 6.
And honestly, just because I really like Ben Affleck as Batman, I'll put Batman vs. Superman next, and then
7,
then Batman and Robin last.
Perfect.
Because
100%.
I don't know.
All right, so for me, Dark Knight, number 1. Dark Knight Rises, 2. Batman Begins, 3. Okay, those 3 films.
That was my hard part. I like all of them. They're all great.
Those 3 films, to me, just stand above everything else. And I put Dark Knight Rises, 2, just because... I didn't watch Batman Begins the first time. I actually saw it last. And I had already kind of had my expectations kind of up there with Dark Knight and then Dark Knight Rises. And Dark Knight Rises, didn't meet the expectations of the Dark Knight, but
it's still good. I like.
But I love the main character.
He creeped me out.
Yes, well, I loved his voice. I know a lot of people have trouble with do you feel in charge?
Did you ever go back and watch? It's on YouTube and you can find it, but. As that movie was first coming out, or it was about to come out, they hadn't released it yet. They, before some certain movies in certain theaters, they played, the first scene where he's in the plane or whatever.
Yeah, the whole first scene.
And when they do that, his voice was different.
Much different, yes.
And honestly, it was creepier to me then.
Yeah, it was.
They went back, people complained that they couldn't understand him well, so they went back and edited it so you could understand him more. Honestly, though, that voice just scared, even as an adult watching that, it's it got me, creeped out, but ready for whatever was about to happen.
Yeah, so Bane was great. Yeah.
Sorry.
You merely adopted the dark. Yeah. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I became a man, and then it was nothing. So those 3 first. Here's where I'm going to probably blow your mind a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm probably the only person who thinks this. Batman Forever 4.
That's okay.
Just because, again, this is the nostalgia goggles.
Yep.
This is not a criticism of Batman 1989 or Batman Returns.
What do you enjoy?
I enjoyed this one, and the other 2 are good, and I enjoy them in a different way. But I'd rather watch this one. That's just me. So I put Batman 89 Returns after that at 5 and 6. Batman v Superman 7, and the only reason it's not in the 8th spot is because Batman and Robin was just the worst film of all time.
I know we're not doing...
Ever.
I know this
ever.
This isn't about Batman vs Superman. I know it's not at all. But there's the hope of glints that I have for Batman comes from that movie.
Yes.
The scene where you first see him, where he's fighting people, but later on in the movie, where he's just beating the crap out of people, in a room.
Mm-hmm.
that to me is like, that's Batman.
Yes, I enjoyed that part of Batman.
And so, like, for me, if I could see that in a full movie, that's what I always think. Now, I can't rate it based on what's not there. I get that. But seeing that little glimpse of that for me was like, this is the Batman that I want to see.
All right. Who won the movie?
Jim Carrey for me, really.
The toy companies.
Oh, well, that's true.
McDonald's.
Yes.
With their cups and their toys.
Speak of the cups.
Yes.
I was going to bring it up earlier, but I didn't. You know, for a lot of people...
Merchandising won this. Advertisement won this movie to me.
I dug right into that and bought all of those things. Well, I guess I convinced my mom to buy them. But the mugs that they would sell at McDonald's, like you had to spend an extra $1 or $2 or whatever to get the collectible, like, glass mugs that had the characters from this movie on it. I had them all.
Mm-hmm.
I went back because some of you that know me know that I collect coffee mugs. So whenever I started collecting, that was the first thing I thought of. Was like, I've got to go find those mugs from my mom's house. I can't find them anywhere at my mom's house. I don't know if she got rid of them or if they're boxed away somewhere.
I'm sure we've probably broken ours, but I had those mugs too. They were awesome.
I'm still going to I've looked them up multiple times and I just haven't made the jump, but I'm going to buy them off of eBay someday, because they're not stupid price.
No, they're not.
Like 20-something bucks for all four or something. But for you're correct, because the toys, I mean, like I said, I had them. I remember being the perfect age. Like, what do you want for your birthday? What do you want for Christmas? Batman.
Yeah. And then I would say Chris O'Donnell won this movie as well, just because he got to play his character again for a second movie.
Well, that's true.
He was already kind of in the spotlight, but he's still got a pretty great career even now on NCIS Los Angeles as a TV character. But he did a lot of good TV work after this as well. Jim Carrey was already a superstar. Tommy Lee Jones, wasn't really affected much by this. Val Kilmer hasn't really done much of anything, in the past 20 years, honestly, of note that I can think of. He did make a appearance on the series finale of Psych, because they mentioned him a lot in that show, and then he shows up. Anyway, that's a spoiler for Psych. I'm not going to ruin that. But knowing all that, just looking at it, it's like the clear, obvious winner here is all the companies that made a buttload of money off of kids who didn't really care how good this movie was.
That's true.
All right. Anything that you want to add? A favorite theory, rabbit hole you went down in your random section?
I didn't have any rabbit holes or anything else, but I did just mention, I mentioned it before on the Fast and Furious episode, but there's a museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It's called the Hollywood Star Cars Museum. Mm-hmm. They've got the Batman Returns Batmobiles in there, the 1966 Batmobiles in there. But the Batman Forever Batmobile is, if you're standing outside looking at this building that's on honestly, to me, Gatlinburg is like Myrtle Beach with the mountains. It's a big strip. If you're looking at it, the Batmobile from Batman Forever is hanging out the front of the building. It's at the top, it's giant window, and it's halfway hanging out. I imagine this is either a replica or probably one that was just used as a sit thing. It probably doesn't drive, especially since it's hanging out the building. It gets rained on and junk now.
Right.
When I first saw it when I was younger, it actually used to be inside the building, and you could walk up to it, and it was cool to see it glowing and everything else compared to other dark Batmobiles and stuff you've seen. But you see that, but then also there's a Batman section in there. They've got Val Kilmer's suit from this movie's in there, from the ending of the movie when he changes his suit up. That one's in there. A lot of the props and stuff were from there, the Robin costume from Batman and Robin's in there. And then I think there's a Batman Returns or something costume. But then there's this big display case that has a bunch of the weapons and everything else used in this. There's also, in another case, there's a mannequin head. Mm-hmm. That was Tommy Lee Jones's face. Okay. But the second half of it is the pink, Two-Face would be. That was shown as I don't know if it was either the test, that was used to show what this would look like, or if it's actually part of the skin stuff they put on his face, but it's sealed off in a case,
right?
To see Two-Face and everything else. So
that's pretty cool.
For me, I totally recommend that place anytime you go. It's kind of expensive to get in. It's not crazy, but there's a lot of cool stuff, and saying the props and everything else that you can stand there and look right at and see that up close.
You mentioned this is jumping back a section to the who won the movie, but you mentioned the Batmobile.
Yeah.
This movie had the Batmobile, the Batwing or the Batplane. And the Bat Boat, which again, I think we're just shoehorned. Those last two were The Batmobile was destroyed at the very end. I don't know why they didn't destroy the Bat Boat and the Bat Plane, but whatever. But I felt like those were just shoot in to sell toys.
I had the Bat Plane.
I had both the Bat Plane, the Bat Boat, and I had my Batmobile was the 1989.
Yeah.
You don't mess with the classic. I fit my red Power Ranger in there so many times.
Yeah.
So
Well, I think the cool thing is those we didn't really note it all in the Batmobile, but just how it changed just as drastically as the movie did.
Yes,
like compared to the previous two where they used, if not the identical one, the very similar ones. Versus this one goes to a much more animated looking one. It's still a Batmobile. It's still like hardcore and crazy looking, but it's more like Batman like symbols on it. It's glowing, like shoots blue flames and jump. I don't know. It fit well for the movie as being a kid. Did you have anything else?
This is something I wanted to add. Ashby mentioned this a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I don't have it verbatim. I should have called and asked her or sent her a text message or something. But she's not a fan of Batman. Do you remember why she's not a fan of Batman? I think that...
I think she said she wasn't really into superheroes anyway until she got into Marvel.
Right.
At least comics.
So I think, and Ashby, she will definitely correct us if we're wrong. So when you listen to this, Ashby, if I get this wrong, forgive me. But I'm probably going to take it down a different path. But I know I think she said that she's not a fan because, he's basically,
She doesn't even like Batman the character. It's not movies.
Yeah, I mean, so Batman, is a billionaire who just buys a bunch of stuff to beat up on, the criminals or whatever. I'm going to take it one step further, and this might even be the same path she goes down. It might be a completely different path. The argument could be made: Batman's actually a villain.
I can see that.
It's not necessarily, his place to go out there and do the police work. Now, he's going out there and, without any context, without anything, he's going out there and he's just beating up on random people. I mean, whether that's right or wrong, is that his job? And so, I mean, that's just a random kind of hole I went down today. I was like, is Batman truly a hero? Is he an anti-hero? I mean, where does he really rank? I know he's positioned as a hero, but we had this conversation a couple weeks ago with Captain America. Everyone is good in the eyes of somebody.
Sure.
Everyone, no matter how despicable or vile your intentions are, somebody is going to look to you and agree with you. So, is Batman just a hero because that's how he's been framed in our minds?
Well, for me, Batman is just as a character, if you're evaluating, is just as important as how is this Bruce Wayne.
Right.
Because Batman is one of the characters that you see more often than not, compared to others anyway, where you see a lot of Bruce Wayne and you see a lot of Batman.
Right.
Spider-Man, you saw a lot of him as Peter Parker, some. But when you get into these newer movies, a lot of it you see as the character, they kind of morph into one, versus Batman and Bruce Wayne are played to be very different type of people in most cases. And you saw it in Christian Bale when he was pretending to be, when he was just being Bruce Wayne. He was pretty much pretending to be Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. A lot of other people are superheroes pretending, like Peter Parker pretending to be Spider-Man as a character.
Yeah.
A lot of times I feel like it's Batman just pretending to be Bruce Wayne, where he would go off and be a jerk so people wouldn't question him or whatever, just think, oh, it's a rich jerk. Similar to how Tony Stark can be portrayed sometimes too. But I think something that stands out for me, and it may be similar for you, but the reason that I started loving Batman so much is the animated series, and the Bruce Wayne from the animated series is much different. He's rich, but he's very involved in his community, very involved in making things better.
Right.
He's not the jerk playboy that you see in a lot of the movies where he's portrayed to try to make sure there's, nobody realizes who he is.
Right.
And so for me, that's where I became a big Batman fan, is realize, that's the Bruce Wayne that showed me he's a good person all around. And then he's just trying to do his best job to fight crime as well. But I can totally see the other, and I totally understand. I'm not a person that'll say you're completely wrong and fight you to the death about Batman, but I can see how you come up, or she can, or you can, whoever, come up with that side of things.
Ashby will have to share her thoughts on Batman.
We'll put Ashby on the couch. We'll have a therapy session.
Kyle?
Yes. Yep.
Riddle me this. What sort of man has bats on the brain? Go ahead, you can say it.
You're a genius.
Yes, I am. So, with that in mind, let's share 6 of our favorite insights and observations from Batman Forever. You go first.
I already mentioned the Batmobile, so I'll jump straight into that. Chris O'Donnell, as in the movie, he drives the Batmobile. He also took it around on the set and crashed it.
Nice.
So, and he stood very much off to, he didn't want all the stunt drivers driving all the time. He wanted to drive. He wanted to do that. He crashed it, and I want to say I heard it was like $60,000 worth of damage they did to it whenever he wrecked it. And he probably didn't do anything crazy, but it's a custom one-off car. So when he hit something with the front end of it and tore it up. But yeah, just a quick note. He hit the curb, and then although the real car actually shoots blue flames, it isn't allowed to be driven on the road unless going for repairs. Over the years, Batmobiles have sold for the insane amount of money, but whether it be Chris O'Donnell or accident or movie mixed reception, Batman Forever's surviving Batmobile only sold for $165,000 in an agreement with Warner Brothers. It says, no wonder Schumacher gave O'Donnell a motorbike for Batman to rock them.
Right. This is why I put an extra fact in for me.
Did I steal that one?
You did. It's okay then.
Sorry.
Number 2. Jim Carrey's Edward Nygma became famous for teasing Batman and the viewer with his own rhyming riddles that were highly intelligent inclusion in the otherwise lowbrow script. Sadly, neither Schumacher or Carrey can claim the brain power to come up with the Riddler's devilishly hard puzzles, but the movie had someone on hand who can. As the crossword puzzle editor of the New York Times since 1993, Will Short certainly had the credentials to craft the Riddler's wordy conundrums. Also founding the World Puzzle Championship in 1992 and co-founding the World Puzzle Federation in 1999, Shorts was the perfect choice to have Batman, Alfred, and the fans scratching their heads in confusion. Shorts has starred in episodes of The Simpsons and How I Met Your Mother, but there's no denying that his biggest claim to pop culture fame is being known as Batman Forever's puzzle master.
I had no clue about that.
Yep. Number 3.
This one you've already mentioned, and I don't know if you put it in your story or not, but you briefly mentioned about Tommy Lee Jones just did not care for Jim Carrey.
He did not.
Jim Carrey did an interview not too long ago. It was at McDonald. What's his name? Ron. I can't remember his first name. Either way, he did an interview with him, and he said that I was a star, and that was the problem. Carrey guessed. He was a phenomenal actor, though, and I still love him. So the situation came to a head in the middle of production before the two had their biggest scene together on the Joe Schumacher film when Carrey randomly popped into the same restaurant that Jones was having dinner. He said the maitre said, "Oh, I hear you're working with Tommy Lee Jones. He's over there in the corner having dinner." I went over and said, "Hey, Tommy, how are you doing?" And the blood just drained from his face, Carrey said, and he got up shaking. He must have been in mid-kill me fantasy or something like that. He went to hug me and said, "I hate you. I really don't like you." And I said, "What's the problem?" And pulled up a chair, which probably wasn't smart. He said, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery."
Nice.
I said later on, he says, it's likely came from Carrey, who had risen quickly to become a huge star, behind the center of attention no matter what room he entered. And you got to think too, Jim Carrey was big on Ace Ventura, The Mask, same way we talked about in here. Like, he's a crazy, wild character type, actor. So he steps in the room, he got all the attention. So if you're a star trying to be a star in film, in any time that you're pretty much in almost all scenes with this guy, and he's constantly stealing the show. So
yes,
I can see where that could be an issue.
Number 4, with his neon-clad, rubber-nippled Gotham City, Schumacher's creation was a million miles away from the gothic Burtonverse. Schumacher gets a hard time for turning the once-beloved series into nothing more than a way for Warner Brothers to sell toys to kids, but it wasn't always supposed to be that way. Back when the studio was deciding where to go after Batman Returns, Joel Schumacher pitched his own equally dark take on Batman lore. The director reportedly wanted to tackle a gritty movie based on Frank Miller's acclaimed Batman Year One. However, Warner Brothers wasn't interested in a prequel and wanted to move towards a more family-friendly franchise. Given Schumacher's tense movies like The Lost Boys and The Client, it isn't too hard to imagine what a grisly version of Batman Forever could have been like. Sadly, never came to be, and the rest, as they say, is history. Number 5,
Arkham Asylum. That says, while it can seem like Arkham Asylum has always been a part of the Batman mythos, it didn't actually show up in the comics until 1974's Batman number 258. Since then, the Asylum, best known for being completely unable to keep Batman in the same roads locked up for more than a week, has become one of the defining pieces of the Batman story. Arkham Asylum, a serious house of serious earth by Grant Morrison and David King, really brought the hospital for the criminally insane to life, but it wasn't until Batman Forever that we got to see it in live action. So this is the first time we ever saw Arkham Asylum actually in the movies.
Very nice.
And number
6, I compare you to a kiss from the rose on the grave. There used to be an art to using music videos as marketing tools for the biggest movies, and that was never done better than with the Seal song Kiss from a Rose from the Batman Forever soundtrack. I mean, just look at the video. If you were around back in 1995, you still know just about every lyric to the song that earned Seal 3 awards at the 1996 Grammys, including both Record and Song of the Year. The song and music video had something for everyone. Powerful lyrics for the music fans, all those great Batman Forever clips for fans of the movie, and there was an unstoppable force. But Kiss from a Rose wasn't the only great song of the film's soundtrack. which was produced by the Wu-Tang Clan's RZA. No, artists like U2, they released a single for the soundtrack. The Flaming Lips, Nick Cave, and even Sunny Day Real Estate were all featured in perhaps the most 1995 album of the year.
I'm going to have to listen. I didn't listen to the album for this one.
Yeah, love the album. Let's jump into our social media shout-outs. I got a few that I'm going to try to find real quick. Ryan Besessi mentioned the Tommy Lee Jones to Jim Carrey, I cannot sanction your buffoonery story. Ethan Brantley says, oh yeah, now y'all are talking. Hunter Batten was obsessed with the Bill Elliott 94 car that had kind of a Batman theme, and the cups that we just talked about. Mm-hmm. Let's go over to another. I know Chris Rode had commented.
Mm-hmm. He commented, I think, on the picture from Wednesday or yesterday.
Okay, let's see if I can find it.
I think.
You think?
A lot of people actually jumped on the one from yesterday.
Possibly. Here we go. Yeah, 12 comments. Okay. Let's see. Michael Thompson said this was a good movie with an all-star cast, but the thing I remember most about it were these cups from McDonald's. The cups are, maybe the cups won the movie.
They probably should have.
Let's see. Kara Craven said, I watched this so much, I also always got a chuckle at Jim Carrey's little dance when he was experimenting on Fred.
Mm-hmm. I watched that today and I was like, wait a second, he actually did that. It wasn't choreographed. I imagine it's just a big burst of energy.
Ethan Brantley said, don't get me wrong, it's no competition for the best ever, but it was leaps and bounds better than the George Clooney one, and we couldn't agree more. Chris Rode said, I really liked this movie also. Jim Carrey was a great Riddler. I also liked Val Kilmer as Batman, but this could all stem from nostalgia. I haven't seen it in a while. And then you had responded, and he said, I think that I have to do that with a lot of movies I enjoyed while growing up. And you're talking about the nostalgia dodges here. I'm still hesitant to watch some movies from my childhood because I'm afraid they will disappoint me now. So those are our comments from Facebook. I'll check the gram real quick.
If we had on Instagram or not. While you're looking that up, there's one thing that always stands out about this movie and my childhood. As soon as you mention doing it, this is what I thought as a person that I think about. He actually married your brother, Josh Leggett.
He didn't marry my brother.
I thought he did.
No, he was the official. He's the guy who was the preacher or the reverend, but my brother married Chelsea.
Well, that's not what I meant.
You need to clarify. I don't want I don't want to go out and Josh's brother married my brother. Come on.
Okay, to clarify, Josh Leggett did not marry Eric's brother. But I remember me and Josh Leggett were best friends at this point, and I remember going to his house and watching this movie, and Josh had the soundtrack,
right,
where he would literally sing Kiss from a Rose on a Grave nonstop. But more than that, he had a giant crush on Nicole Kidman, to the point that he would almost talk as if it was his girlfriend, like he was going to marry her someday. That's the first time I remember anybody kind of obsessing over an actress, which led me on to the next movie, having a giant crush on Alicia Silverstone. So that's what I think about every time, though, is I remember sitting in Josh Leggett's living room, watching that, and his dad would interrupt us and like, Kyle, did I ever show you that video when we went to Washington, D.C. and toured it? And I said, yes, you did last time. Well, great, let's watch that again. So he would always turn it off to watch that. But that's what I think about Josh Leggett crushing hard on Nicole Kidman, listening or singing Seal.
Nice.
So that's what I get out of this movie.
I got a couple more comments. Jay Grimm said, great soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Ridley Diddley said, the greatest cinematic achievement since Citizen Kane. That might be sarcasm, I'm not sure.
It's hard to tell on Instagram.
Greenheart31, which is Tim Hutchinson, one of our researchers and great friends, said he got the 4 classic Batman movies on Blu-ray for Christmas. And he just recently watched Batman Forever. Probably my favorite one of those. I don't think I ever saw it when it first came out, but what strikes me about this movie is the casting. I think they found the perfect people for each role. Not sure why they didn't have Val Kilmer as Batman again after this. So that'll take it all for the social media shots. We appreciate y'all joining in for that. Any final thoughts before we jump into the end? We've done pretty well on time. Ashby's she has been wanting to make sure we've had the longest episodes every time she's here, and she's succeeded. We did not reach those heights today, but we've done pretty good for a pretty long episode for a movie that is enjoyable.
Honestly, I didn't expect it to go this long.
I didn't think it was going to go this long either, honestly. So
fun to talk about, though.
Absolutely. All right, friends. Big thank you. Ashby Brain, who will be back hopefully next week's episode. Rickie Liles, Tim Hutchinson. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. That you're as pumped for the rest of this journey into the vast world of pop culture. Next week, not next month, next week,
yes,
we will be covering our favorite comic book characters. Until next time, baby, I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grave. Ooh, the more I get of you, the stranger it feels, yeah.
Yeah.
Now that A light, it's the gloom on the grave. La da 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 da. Stay as cool as the other side of the pillow, and we will see you next week.
What the what?
Bye.